A new external ceiling just came into effect, and it's impacting millions of women. And the shockwave is bigger than people realize. And it happened right before Thanksgiving, a week when women's nervous systems are already taxed from being the planners, the organizers, and the emotional glue. So today we're breaking it down with clarity and calm so your system doesn't have to absorb one more thing. Welcome back to UnCeiling You. It's Thanksgiving week, a week where so many of us, especially women, carry more emotional load than usual. And this week, something significant happened in the news that connects directly to what we talk about here, internal and external ceilings, the barriers inside us and the systems around us. Right before the holiday, that leans heavily on women's invisible labor, the Trump administration announced a new federal rule that reclassifies nursing, social work, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech-language pathology, education degrees, and physician assistance programs as non-professional. And that change has consequences. Now, before we go any further, I want to acknowledge something. Some people are already saying, this isn't real. You're exaggerating that this is going to have a big impact. It's not about gender. And you may hear those reactions. And let's talk about why. Because today's episode isn't political. It's about context, clarity, and calm leadership. It's about how we stay grounded when the system undervalues the work women do. So let's talk about what's happening, who it affects, why it matters, and how we can still find gratitude for our gifts, not because the world validates them, but because they're real. So what's really happening? Here's the plain English version of what the new rule does. Starting July 1st, 2026, Graduate Plus loans disappear for programs labeled non-professional. Students in those programs can only borrow $20,500 a year in standard federal loans with a lifetime cap of $100,000. Only 11 degrees keep their higher $50,000 a year borrowing structure. And these include MD, DO, JD, PharmD, dentistry, veterinary medicine, podiatry, chiropractic medicine, and theology. Now, let's clarify something most people don't know. What is a Graduate Plus loan? A Graduate Plus loan is a federal loan that covers the gap between the $20,500 a year standard federal loan and the actual cost of graduate school. For example, a physical therapy doctoral program might cost $45,000 a year. The standard $20,500 loan doesn't cover these costs. The Graduate Plus loan fills the difference so that students don't have to turn to a private debt, meaning they can only borrow $20,500 a year, even though the programs cost between $30,000 and $50,000 a year, creating a $10,000 to $30,000 annual funding gap. And because federal plus loans are removed, the only option becomes private loans. That means higher interests, no federal protections, and we'll talk about what that means next. So who is hit by this and why is it gendered? Let's talk about who works in these fields. 87% of nurses are women. 81% of social workers are women. 77% of K through 12 education are women. Occupational therapy, 83% women. Speech-language pathology, 88 to 91% women. Physical therapy and physician assistants, about 65% women. And when you average it out, roughly 70 to 80% of the people affected are women. And while no one wrote, we intend to target women, the demographics make the impact impossible to ignore. At the same time, the fields that keep full borrowing access include medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and law, come from legacy lists created in the 1960s, 6 decades ago. Let that hit you. Long before women participated in the workforce in meaningful numbers. This isn't an emotional claim. It's not even political spin. It's just simple math. So what they say versus what it actually does. So let's talk about the official explanations. We're simplifying the loans. We're preventing students from taking out too much debt. This will finally push schools to lower tuition. But here's what history shows. Restricting loan access has never lowered tuition. It simply reduces who can afford to enter the field, especially fields that don't pay like medicine or law. And here is where we need to explain the consequences of losing federal loans. What happens when students must take out these private loans? Number one, the private loans don't offer income-driven repayment. Federal loans allow payments based on income. Private loans require full payments immediately or soon after graduation. They don't qualify for public service loan forgiveness. It's a federal program that forgives loans after 10 years of working in public service jobs like teaching, nursing, therapy, or social work. They don't have federal protections like payment pause during hardship, interest caps, disability discharge, death discharge, forbearance, unemployment deferment. Federal loans protect borrowers. Private loans do not. So when the Graduate Plus loans disappear for these fields, the message is not borrow responsibly. The message becomes if you want to enter these professions, you're taking a risk and you are on your own. And these are not luxury professions. They are professions that hold society together. This is why so many women felt something deeper than frustration, because it's a pattern. Women's work gets classified as less professional. Women bear more financial risk for following their passion and their purpose to help society. Women's career paths narrow. Women absorb more with less support. These are the external ceilings we talk about on this podcast. So what does this mean for society? And I'm being neutral here, bipartisan and non-political. Here's where we bring this all together without leaning left or right. I'm just naming the consequences we all have to experience, no matter where we live or how we vote. First, fewer nurses will enter the workforce. We already face a nursing shortage, especially in rural America and in elder care. If fewer students can afford nursing programs or even willing to take the risk of going into nursing, the shortage intensifies. Fewer teachers, K through 12 classrooms across the country, red states and blue already struggle to fill vacancies. This rule makes graduate teaching degrees harder to access. Reduce access to therapy services. Physical therapists, occupational therapists, and speech-language pathologists support aging adults. Those are people that are recovering from a stroke, children with developmental needs, veterans, people with disabilities, and when we shrink these pipelines, the wait list grows. There's going to be fewer social workers. A shrinking supply affects mental health counseling, foster care, addiction treatment, emergency response, and elder care. These services are essential in every community. Fewer physician assistants in rural areas. PAs are often the only clinicians available in rural hospitals, farming communities, tribal lands, medical underserved areas. If the PA programs become financially out of reach, access to care decreases for everyone. And last, higher burnout rates for those who remain. When fewer people enter these fields, those already working absorb more, accelerating burnout and turnover. This isn't about politics, and it's not about asking for handouts. It's not about left or right. It's about whether people can afford to enter these professions that every community depends on. Nurses at the bedside, teachers in the classroom, therapists helping children speak or recover, social workers supporting families, PAs keeping rural clinics open. Every one of us, no matter who we voted for, want nurses available when we're in the ER. We want therapists available when a loved one has a stroke. This rule isn't about beliefs or ideology. It's about workforce stability. It's about access to care. It's about whether essential professions remain possible to enter. And those consequences touch every family, every community, every political identity. So we're in the period of Thanksgiving, and I want you to have gratitude. Now, before we go any further, let's pause for a moment. This isn't light information. It's kind of heavy, and the timing matters. Thanksgiving week is already a week where many women carry more emotional and logistics weight than usual. The planning, hosting, remembering all the details, holding space for everyone else. So hearing news like this right now doesn't just land in the mind, it hits in the nervous system, makes us tense and anxious. And I want to make space for that. And I also want to offer this. Even when external systems undervalue the professions women lead, your internal value hasn't changed. External ceilings are real. Internal ceilings are real, but so are your gifts and the importance of your purpose. And if gratitude has a place this week, let it be here. Your steadiness under pressure, the way people rely on you, your ability to hold emotional space, the intuition you lead with, the clarity you bring to chaos, the compassion you embed in every decision. Your work is not non-professional. Your presence is not optional. Your leadership is not small. If nothing else this week, be grateful for the truth of who you are, even when systems fail to recognize it. So before I close, I want to come back to you for a moment, because when something like this hits, something that questions the legitimacy of the work you do, something that suggests your career isn't professional, something that lands in the center of fields dominated by women, it's normal for your nervous system to flare. Not because you're dramatic, but because you're human and because you care. And because this affects you, your colleagues, your students, your patients, and your community. And for so many high-performing women, the instinct response is, I need to fix this now. I need to speak up. I need to protect everyone I care. And that is not a weakness. That's responsibility and that's integrity. But it's also urgency, the mode we slip into when the world tells us, yet again, that the work we do somehow counts less. And here's what I want you to know. Your clarity, your presence, and your leadership do not come from urgency. They come from steadiness. They come from a regulated nervous system. They come from a grounded place inside of you that no federal rule can touch. And that's why I've created the Reset and Recharge Guide, because in moments like these, when your profession is questioned and when the load feels heavier, you deserve tools that help you come back to yourself. The guide is simply there for you if you need it. If today stirred something up, it will help you settle your system before you decide your next step. Here are some simple, concrete places to begin. First, contact your congressional representative. Second, submit a public comment to the Department of Education. Third, work along an advocacy group already pushing back. You don't have to fix everything. You do not have to sprint. Your job is to stay steady enough to lead in your family, in your work, and in your community with your voice and clarity that only you can bring. Once again, if you need support getting grounded, that's what the free Reset and Recharge Guide is there for. The link is in the show notes, along with links to places to raise your voice. Please have a beautiful Thanksgiving holiday, and I look forward to seeing you next.